Let's see if this is working. It says wait for host to start. Technical difficulties. Oh, now it shows 2 participants. This is how I've always done it, so I don't know what could be wrong. I've never had any issues before. I can't even see you. Attendees allowed to talk. Oh, that sure might help. That was weird. I've never had to do that before.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
But you can't see me.
No.
You have to let my video somehow.
This is weird. I've never had
Let me out of my box.
Yeah. I've never had to do this before. This is really bizarre.
We need an ops boss to help us.
Seriously, this is, yeah. Normally I'm like all right at this kind of stuff, but where? No. Huh.
Is there like an add to screen or something like that?
No, all it says for you is disable talking, chat, promote to panelist, remove.
Promote to panelist. Aha!
Okay. Well, that was weird. What's up? Good to see you finally.
Nice to see you too.
Oh my gosh. What I like anyways, who cares? It's working now, but
It's all good.
I've
And
used
look, it's only 2 o'clock.
Right. Yeah, we're right on point, I guess. Yeah, that's awesome. Weird. Maybe they changed something because I've used this multiple times just as it was laid out and never had that issue. So
that's the theme of the week, apparently, change.
Yeah, you're not kidding. How about that, huh? What's your reaction to that? Just not to gossip. And we are being recorded, but it's just to my staff that they slice this up. So
I think it's awesome. I've had the privilege of sitting in on Gary's private mastermind multiple times, and I think he's brilliant, and I couldn't be happier to have him back in the saddle.
Yeah. Yep. Totally agreed. Okay, so we got to get live here. So quick rundown. What would you first and foremost like to get across? Because this isn't about me. I want to give you the stage with telling them obviously who you are and what you do and promoting that, but also the nuggets of value and stuff like that. I think we can just enter into a normal conversation Q&A. So
awesome.
You want to make sure you get across though?
So do you want me to introduce myself first?
Yes. So what I'm going to do is welcome and I'll have you there. Just smile and look.
Oh, gotcha.
And then I'll kick it over to you. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we can kind of like run the full gamut because I think probably your coaches have people making their first admin hire all the way up to coaching people who have teams and
That's right.
how to retain. And then I'd really love to talk about the difference between an average assistant and an ops boss and, you know, an expense versus
I've got that on my notes, yep, to ask you, because I teed it up that was kind of our theme today after we get through the who are you and what do you do phase.
Perfect.
Diving into, you know, I'll lead you. I'm decent at interviewing and leading you to what, you know, and going over, I'll probably lead into that of what the heck is an ops boss? And I like to have fun and stuff with this. And then getting into what's the difference of an admin versus an ops boss. Why is it important for coaches to know the difference between the two? And I think organically we'll have a good Q&A back and forth from there.
Awesome. Yeah, you know all the pain points.
Yeah, well, I mean, and so do you, by the way. So anything we need to be sensitive for on time? When do we want to wrap this thing up? So it's...
I'm good. I have another call at 3. I can go all the way bump against 3 if people want to do Q&A or whatever, or if we want to just keep it focused, I'm good with that too.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. I am going to pull up on my phone our Facebook group just so when I go live, I can see it's working.
Perfect.
And then I'll look at that for questions and things. Okay, so you ready? I got some things to do, but hang on here. Live on Facebook. Right now I cannot see you because it's asking me where do I want to share this? In a group, coaches only. Next. Preparing live streaming preview. Come on. All right. I get to type, what should we call this? Jake and Christy Grossman. Q&A admin versus ops boss. Cool. All right. I'm good. Are you good?
We are ready.
All right. There's a delay, so I'm going to click live and then go back to the screen, and here we go. Hang on one second. Oh, God. Setting up your Facebook. Okay. Sorry. It's doing its thing.
It's doing its thing. We're
We're
good.
probably live right now, and I don't even know it. The coaches are used to my silly butt, though. Oh, it says we are live. Okay, hang on. Let me double check on the phone real quick. Yes, we are. I can see ourselves in the group page. That's really weird. Okay. Hey, everybody. There we go. Jake here. I am honored, as I told you, guys, that we were going to be featuring Christy Grossman with us today, and I'm going to have her introduce herself here in just a second. But like I said to you guys, the intent for today is to bring value. We're always trying to find value in any way, shape, or form we can to help you guys elevate your coaching game. And that being said, what better person to hear from when it comes to the operations and administrative roles that many of you are going to be coaching when it comes to teams and rainmakers and whatnot. And that's why we're bringing Christy on here. And to set the expectation for her being so generous with her time, thank you, Christy, is what I'm referring to as a strategic relationship. I think us as coaches in this group page, we excel at coaching, by large, real estate sales professionals or just sales business people in general. Most of us, lack in the expertise of coaching the administration, the operations behind the scenes that makes everything go. So as far as I'm personally concerned, and I hope all of you will join me in this, Christy is somebody that I am growing to love and trust and feel comfortable to refer people her way when and if I have somebody that I'm coaching or even hear about who struggles or needs help in the area of their operational coaching and advisory. So that being said, Christy is my go-to person. And Christy, I would love for you to tell everybody, most of them know who you are anyways, but tell us who you are and what you do, kind of a little bit of background on what you're doing now.
That was awesome. Thank you so much. I want to tell you too, Jake, I'm so pleased because I only work with operations people, so I'm super, super happy to also be able to pour back because I get that same question all the time. I don't take anyone into coaching unless the Rainmaker is in coaching, so if they need coaches, I have a great place to send them. So that being said, I'm Christy Belt-Grossman. I ran the Belt team as Chief Operating Officer for 23 years. Our team at one time was number 5 in Keller Williams. We're still one of the top teams. And I love doing that. I have a huge passion for the operations side of the business. I think it's this little tiny stealth bomber engine that can power up an agent or a team that doesn't get a lot of attention. So that's my passion. I opened my coaching and teaching company 3 years ago, and I have several other people that coach and teach with me, and we travel around the country and pour into the operations people on teams.
That's awesome. And hear me say, for accountability purposes, I fully intend on getting our operations team involved with Christy on some levels. So anyways, I just want you to know that that is something that here at the locker room, the core leadership team will be working with Christy in some aspects there too. So I'm seeing some comments. So if I'm looking over here, that's why I'm looking at my phone. Carissa's on. Holly says we're live. Lisa Potter says hello. We've got a lot of viewers here. So good.
Awesome.
Great. So Christy, like right now, I want to spend a little bit of time, if you'll allow me to. What do you do exactly? So events, the one-on-one coaching, kind of like what's your heart and mission and perspective on your coaching organization? Because I think we have a lot of similar alignments when it comes to that, if you don't mind sharing.
So we actually kind of run the spectrum now. I have different people in my organization that have a heart for the different stages that EAs, we'll just use the word EA instead of assistant, or it could be, director of operations, whatever. It's easier to just say EA. So our mission statement is dream big, achieve big, impact lives. We change lives one by one by one and change the world. So we're very much about empowering the person. We're doing business coaching, but coaching the whole person, and through that, powering up real estate teams and changing lives. Truly, it's about changing lives. So we have everything from, we have a new training ops boss training center coming out in February, which will be group coaching with video training behind it, which is targeted for the newer EA. So agents who have an EA who's less than 2 years in the business, this is ideal. And I have an awesome coach, Elizabeth Gilbert. Some people may know her because she's been writing a blog for a number of years called The Assistant Files. And so she's leading that. We have classes all around North America called Be a Boss, 10 Secrets of a Mega EA, which is kind of a higher-minded class, but everyone from the beginner to the 20-year veteran can go to that, and the Rainmaker should come to that too. So that's a class for agents and assistants. We talk about accountability and goal setting and owning their side of the business. That's one of my favorite parts. And then we've got one-on-one coaching. I have a coach who coaches with me who she's the chief operating officer of the team, two mega teams that just merged, the Anderson group in Colorado and Idaho, and Mike Hicks group just merged. So it's a team of about 30 people, and she leads that team and also does one-on-one coaching and teaching. And then once a year, my favorite event is the Ops Boss Leader Retreat.
Yes.
So this is 3 days of Friday, Saturday, Sunday, all ops, for ops, by ops, where I have amazing speakers come in. We do breakout sessions, masterminds, panels. It's phenomenal. So that's in October.
Well, and I personally love, shameless plug right now, I love following you on social media, your posts, your graphics, they're world class. So real quickly on the front end of this, how can people follow you? How can they get in touch with you on Facebook or wherever so they can see what you're doing?
So Instagram and Facebook, we're Ops Boss Coaching, just all run together. They can follow me on Facebook. I keep hitting my 5,000 people, and I keep deleting on birthday days.
I do that too.
Yep. Birthdays and and my memories, I go back and delete every day. So if you can get in, follow me at Christy Grossman on Facebook. Otherwise, just follow instead of friending me. And you can follow Ops Boss Coaching at Ops Boss Coaching on Facebook, Insta, and also Ops Boss. I can't talk today. OpsBossCoaching.com.
Hey, tell you one thing that this group of coaches who's watching this right now knows. We screw up a whole lot, and we're okay with that, and we're transparent and honest, and what you see is what you get. So who cares?
Totally my style.
This is no stuffy interview here, I'll tell you that much.
Let's stop plugging me and let's give some value to your people.
Yeah, well, I owe it to you to do that.
There's my ID coming out.
I know, but they're genuinely interested too. I really want that to come across. As I'm looking at the comments, Kim Diop, for example, says she took your Ops Boss class with her EA last year, and it was great. So,
thank you.
Yeah, you've got a strong following, and Cynthia Matheny says, I love your picture quote posts and all that stuff. So yeah,
I love her stuff that she's doing. Tell her congrats on her new mentor.
Oh yeah. All right, so let's get into it then. I love the language. We know language matters. So what in the hell is an ops boss? Like, what do we mean when you say that, and what's different from that versus an administrative assistant?
So that's a great question, because I think sometimes the word boss has a bad connotation. So let's talk about that. So the way that sort of came forward was there's been a lot of talk over time about mega agents, mega teams. The word mega is used all the time, and I thought nobody's talking about the behind the scenes people. You can't have an uber successful agent or an uber successful team without having someone powering you behind the team.
Amen.
So we use the word boss as in taking ownership.
Right.
I'm a big person about taking ownership. So I think when people are hiring, they need to differentiate between, am I just hiring an average assistant? Is that me dinging or you?
I have no idea. It could be me.
Okay.
I thought I closed out my Facebook.
As long as that we're good. Are they hiring an average assistant, or are they hiring an ops boss? And there's no right or wrong. There's just what's right or wrong for your business. And so, for example, an average assistant would maybe be a follower, where an ops boss would be a leader on your team.
Okay.
An average assistant might be an empire protector, where an ops boss would be an intrapreneur. I love the word intrapreneur. We're not entrepreneurs, but we're intrapreneurs. We're also empire protectors, but we're empire builders as well. And it's kind of two different things.
So, okay, got it. And so how do you go about your coaching practices or building up these leaders that's traditionally different from the lack of support or lack of training they would otherwise receive?
So I think, some of the things we talk about in the class is just the concept of ownership. What does that look like? So it's two-pronged. It's one is working on the mindset of the operations person to understand that they actually can and want to own this side of the business because they're better at it, right? So when they were hired because their agent probably isn't good at paperwork, isn't good at systems, isn't good at all these things. So let them own it. And then the second prong of that is also working with the agents to understand how to empower their people. So that the ops person wants to take ownership, and how can the agent empower them to do so?
That makes sense. So for the coaches listening out here who, as we know, are going to pour back into the rainmakers, the sales professionals aspect of this, what from your experience has been like the DNA to look for? If I've got all these resumes flooding in, like what specifically have you found to look for, identify in somebody who's going to be an ops boss versus just cul-de-sac talent?
Well, so it's interesting. I think first you've got to dig into where is the agent going. Before you even talk about the hire, are you coaching an agent who just wants to grow slowly, a little bit at a time? Are you coaching an agent that wants to grow in leaps and bounds? Because when you're hiring an ops boss, that ops boss is not just happy with status quo. So an ops boss is definitely learning-based, growth-oriented. They are resourceful. They know how to find answers for themselves. They're not expecting to be trained, right? So an average assistant walks in, they expect you're going to train them and teach them how to do everything. An ops boss comes in, is going to take charge and go. So the question is the agent ready for that? I have a lot of agents that say, I want an ops boss, but are you going to do the things that it takes in coaching, to do what it takes to get where the ops boss wants to go?
This is such a big topic, and I agree with you. Thank you for that, because it's, if we reference John Maxwell, for example, it's the first law, right? It's the law of the lid in his book, The 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. And so many top agents, can you hear me? Looks like it's frozen on my end. Did my internet cut out? Hello, hello. Uh-oh, are we still there?
We're back.
Oh, weird. My internet just like totally cut out or something. My internet connection is unstable, it tells me. No, whatever. You can hear me though?
Don't take it personally, Jake. I can hear you.
Okay, great. So we're back. What I was saying though is, from my experience, so many top agents, when they live up to this expectation that they feel like they got to grow a team, when sometimes they're not meant to. If I'm just being blunt, they have no business hiring somebody else because they suck as a leader or a manager, or they're not, at least not willing to invest the time and energy into developing that. So what do you think is the biggest mistake from your perspective that the rainmakers make? And then I've got another question on the back end of that.
I think the biggest mistake rainmakers make is not taking the time before they hire. They make the mistake before they hire. So I think what happens is you're overwhelmed, you're stressed, I need help, like I'm losing deals, like I got sticky notes all over my computer, my life is a mess, I need an assistant yesterday. And they just plunge in and hire, rather than the first step they need to do is focus on actually a job description and what's the 20% of the role. Yes. And I can tell you from traveling around the country, I can walk into a room and teach 100 people, and maybe 2 agents and 2 admin can tell me what the 20% of their role is. Until you know what the 20% of the role is, you don't know who to hire. Because are you hiring for marketing? Are you hiring for customer service? Are you hiring for numbers? Are you hiring for, writing listing descriptions? Like, what's the most important thing you're hiring for? Those are all different behavioral profiles.
Right.
And so what happens is they hire the wrong person, they fail, they hire again, and then they give up.
Yep, exactly. So from your experience again, when, let's say we're past that now, the mega agents hired their first admin or whatever, what's been, generally speaking, the greatest, where do they go first? The greatest need first, where most people are messing up? Where can be the greatest impact an ops boss can have on a person's business if done the right way day one? Where would they focus?
I think we've got to have if you're Keller Williams, you want to have a 30, 60, 90 plan. You want to know what the milestones are so that they can be self-managed by the end of that 90 days.
Right.
And clarity on what does that look like. I think we want to have expectations set. And I think, this is going to sound like the stupidest thing ever. I see relationships failing because time is not spent. That agents, once you get in, you get them a little trained, and then you're like, great, I'm on a roll, I'm out of here. Sit down with them for 30 minutes a week and let them direct the conversation. Let them get what they need from you.
Gotcha. So doing like the cash talk, if we use the former days and that kind of stuff.
Yep.
Keeping a thumb on the pulse, not just hiring them for a task or a job and then never checking in on them. It's like, whoo, got that off my plate. Now I can go get another listing.
And take some time to work on the business with them, not just in the business.
Yeah, I love that.
So I think what happens is a lot of those meetings are just the rainmaker swooping in, whoop, and then out. Here's what I need, I'm out. But what about asking, what does your ops boss need?
Right. So if I'm hearing you, the best thing as a coach, because we get asked a lot, hey, when should I make that first hire? When do I know the timing's right? First of all, before we can even answer that, we have to identify what is it that your long-term goal is, so we make sure our current decisions line up with that long-term goal. And secondly, what exactly pinpointed would this person be doing and taking off of your plate, and what would you do at that time you gain back? Is that so far?
That's the second part. Yeah. I love what you just said. And what will you do with the time that you get back?
Yeah.
So I think there's clarity there. For some people, they just want more of a life.
Okay.
And for some people, they want to use that time for lead generation and to build. And do you have accountability with your coach once you make the hire to do that?
Right. Yeah, Cynthia Matheny made a good comment here. It makes me think of Fierce Conversations, where the relationship is the conversation. Do you agree with that?
1,000,000%. I actually blogged about that recently.
Okay. All right, cool.
Yeah.
Let's talk about blind spots then. So we've got an ops boss in place. We know their talent. We've got the rainmaker who's aligned with a vision. They've got a purpose. Where are typically the early signs of a blind spot occurring that can sneak up on a team, no matter how talented they are, to kind of take them off course? Is there a pattern or a trend that you normally see? Or
I think what happens is that we don't have clear goals set out, and we don't talk about those goals often enough. Mm-hmm. So are you working a 1-3-5, or do you have some sort of written goals for the team? Right. And then does each person on the team have their goals for their side of the business feeding into that? And I think what happens is we do all these great retreats at the end of the year or the beginning of the year, and then a couple months in, we don't even remember what those goals are. We're just so into the day-to-day. So I think it's really important to have those on the business meetings and making sure that our actions are in alignment with where we want to go.
Yeah. And what would you recommend on those? Is that a weekly thing by nature? Or?
I recommend that people do a 411 weekly.
Yeah.
Absolutely. 15 to 20 minutes. It does not need to be a super long conversation. I think what happens is it ends up into an hour conversation, and then it falls by the wayside.
Yeah.
So we can do that in a 15 to 20 or 30-minute conversation.
Yeah, just get to it. And okay.
Yeah. And I think the other part of that is I think agents struggle with how to do that with an operations person. So it's super easy with your salespeople to do accountability, right? Because you're just looking at numbers. How many contacts did you make? How many appointments? Blah, blah, blah. Are you on the way to your goal? It's a little less clear for an admin person.
It's really good because, I mean, imagine a perfect world. I'm kind of talking to the coaches right now where you've got this person who's got all the talent in the world, their business is blowing up, but odds are, and I'm being assumptive here, but odds are they've probably never led or managed people in the sense that we're talking about here. They came from a 9-to-5, and there's nothing wrong with that. So for many, it's the overcoming of a limiting belief of, oh my God, I'm about to hire the first person in my life, let alone leading them. And what a great opportunity that is for us as the coaches coaching the Rainmaker to work on leadership. We spend all this time, from my experience, talking about goals and what did you reflect and learn on, what are you going to do differently next week? But we're not building them up as leaders, which is going to make them, it's the be do have concept, right? So they can show up the way they need to show up. Otherwise, that ops boss, the real ops boss, they're out of there. Have you seen that happen plenty of times? Because talent.
That's a really great point, is I think your coaches can really work with agents when they're hiring on, okay, this is the time you're making the transition. You're obviously a star salesperson, or you wouldn't be doing enough business to need to hire. So now you need to transition and become a star leader. So how do you become a star leader? Here's a tip that I share actually with my ops leaders, and that is, I'm sure your people have all read 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership by John Maxwell, but in there is a self-evaluation. So number one, they can have their agents do the self-evaluation, so that'll give them some clarity on where they may have some blind spots as a leader. And then I actually periodically will take that self-evaluation and give it to people in my life where I show up as a leader. So I gave it to my husband and my daughter because I'm a leader at home. I gave it to my team leader in the office. I gave it to people on my team. I gave it to the women at church where I lead a leadership retreat. And I asked all of them to fill it out about me so that I could get some 360 perspective on what my weaknesses were so I could work on them. So that's something you could have the coaches do with their agents.
That's awesome. Yeah. I know I'm bouncing all around, but I want to go back to something real quick just to kind of put you on the spot here. And by the way, guys, I have no written questions. None of this was rehearsed. We just hopped on here. So I'm just flying by. I hope if you have questions, please type them in the chat here. I see a lot of you engaging with us. If you have questions that you want me to ask Christy, please put it in the comments, and I will make sure I ask those, okay? But I want to go back to something real quick. We do get asked a lot, how do I know, or when will I know it's the right time to make my first hire? What would be your, I know there's not a one-size-fits-all answer, but what would be your suggested answer or question even back to the coach when that comes up?
I would say, well, I would want to know where they're going and how fast they intend to get there. Okay,
so those first two checkpoints, you've said that multiple times. So where are you going? Do you have a goal? And how quickly do you want to get there?
What's the speed? What are your cash reserves?
Why would you say that?
I would want to have that in there. Now, it's not, that's one of the things we didn't talk about, the difference between an assistant and an ops boss. So an assistant is an expense, and an ops boss is an investment. An ops boss is actually going to do things in your business to generate income through the systems side of the business, whereas an assistant is just sort of kind of doing tasks and maintaining.
Write that down, everybody.
Paid for their time, and an ops boss is paid for their results.
Oh, okay. So just kicked it up a notch. I just got a little uncomfortable.
Now, the pay levels are different, right? You're not going to pay an assistant the same thing you would pay an ops boss.
Right.
So that's why I said you have to know where you're going.
Right.
Do you just want to add life to your, add a little bit of time back to your schedule by hiring somebody, or are you building a team?
Yeah. So let me paint a scenario then and see if you answer that any different. Like, all right, I'm a first year agent. I'm knocking the cover off the ball. I just capped in 6 months. It's just up trajectory. Through my actions, you can tell I'm the real deal and I'm serious about starting a team. And then I find myself hitting that wall, that E2P ceiling. Is there a certain unit count? I know this is a very awkward, hard answer, but how will I know when the right time is?
I think it depends what part of the country you're in and how complicated your deals are and all of that. I would say probably somewhere in the 25 unit range.
Yeah, I agree.
It's time.
24 to 36 is usually right in there, and yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, you're doing 2 a month.
And what would be the expectations for our coaches leading the team lead? If I hire an ops boss and it's the right fit and I'm the right leader, what would my business potentially do in a year's time? What would be a fair expectation? The
concept that I teach on the ops boss side is that you should 3x your salary. That's actually when I was on stage with Gary Keller at Mega Live, what we talked about. So if your salary is $50,000, then you should bring in $150,000 in GCI to the team through the use of systems.
Wow.
And that can be super, super simple. It's not anything complicated. It's just, like you just said, going from E to P many times, taking what your agent may have been doing. Sometimes I do it, sometimes I don't, and actually putting a system in place so it always happens.
So when you're working with, that's a great point. So when you're working with the ops boss as a coach to client relationship, do you generally kind of steer them or direct them where you know the low-hanging fruit is to maximize business return? Like, is it working the database, or where would you ideally point that person to?
So actually, we've started having a lot of conversations recently as we're sort of heading back. A lot of my areas where I'm coaching are heading back into shift.
Yeah.
Some are, here and there, yes and no. But regardless, we're really focusing on knowing numbers this year. How many people are in your Met database?
Nice.
How many deals did you get from your Met database last year? What's our target for this year, and how are we going to get there?
Okay, so the ops boss, so if I'm the Rainmaker, I would turn over my database and creating of systems and things to maximize that. Are you still judging it off of a MREA 12-2? Or are you back at a 10% expected return? Where are your numbers?
We've just been using MREA 1, waiting for MREA 2 to come out. But really, regardless of that, right? I know, who knows?
Yeah, no.
The point is to know, what I'm finding is no one knows their numbers.
Right.
So let's know our numbers, and when you measure it, it grows, right? So now we know our number, and we can make a goal for another number and shoot higher.
Right. So we got to interrogate the current reality, and if you can't answer that question, we have to find that out first. Exactly. We're not going to pick an arbitrary number out of thin air because a book says so. We got to know your number.
We need to know, right? Well, we need to even start with every team defines MET differently.
Yeah.
How do you define a MET? So let's decide what our definition is. Let's make sure all our people know. Let's categorize our database. Let's see how many we got. How many are we going to shoot for, and what are the activities to get us there?
Okay. Again, your experience. What would you say is the biggest rub, or when you're coaching an ops boss and they come to you, I'm going to use the word complaining, about something going on with the Rainmaker. What is that typically, so we know how to coach that on the other end?
I think it's consistency in meeting.
In meeting? Okay. See, that's another recurring theme I've heard you say already.
They want time with the Rainmaker, and they want them to show up at their appointments. So there's a lot of Rainmakers. They have good intentions, but then a walkthrough problem happens, or a listing appointment, or whatever. I think their biggest challenge is what they would want is that's sacred, holy time.
Yeah. All right. So ops bosses spell love just like a child, T-I-M-E.
Boom.
That's what I hear you say. Okay, good.
Boom.
That's a love language. I saw you post about the love languages.
It sounds so simple, but it's the thing I see across the board every time.
That's fascinating. Yeah. And that's actually a really big nugget as far as I'm concerned, because if we just are people of integrity and manage our calendars and do what we say we're going to do, and they don't ask for much, they just want to know, at times, am I on the pace? Am I doing what you want me to do? Here's a status update, whatever. Again, it goes back to the conversation is the relationship.
Relationship, yeah. I mean, and that's the difference, I think, too, between an assistant and an ops boss. An ops boss is a true partner in the business. An ops boss is going to treat the agent's business as if it's their very own business and operate just like they care as much as if it's their business.
Right.
And so if you invest the time in them, they will invest back in you.
Interesting. Yeah. What else is a difference in ops boss versus admin? Just anything we haven't yet covered, because you've said a lot, and I bounce.
I think just maybe, strategic things, like they're thinking at a higher level. So an admin assistant is maybe paying bills or filing bills, and an ops boss is actually either doing or outsourcing and analyzing the P&L. An ops boss is actually looking at the numbers, knows the object of the game is to have 40% profit. And how can we manipulate what we're doing to get to 40% profit? Whereas an average assistant is still useful. They're paying the bills and they're keeping it filed for your accountant. So that takes something off you, but it's a different level.
Right.
Same thing with marketing. Maybe the assistant is like really great at marketing and doing flyers and all these different social media campaigns, but an ops boss is looking at cost and return. What's my return on investment? What amount of time did I take and what did that return? How many deals did we get?
Yeah. So so you had shared at the beginning of this, your track record and leading one of the at the time one of the top 5 teams in all of Keller Williams. For you personally, I'm just curious, and I think probably others are too. Like, what was your defining moment? When did you transition from EA to ops boss yourself and shone the light?
Before I came into real estate, actually.
Really? Yeah. So what did you do?
Believe it or not, I came into real estate to get balance in my life.
Okay.
So I ran 7 offices of a mortgage company in 3 different states. So it was kind of like expansion before expansion was the sexy new word, but it was in the mortgage business.
Yeah, right.
So I did that. I came into real estate and for 2 agents, just the 3 of us, and we built the team up to 15.
Wow.
So,
wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So, coaches, again, I'm checking, do you value my, I think that was just a kind of a whatever question. Carol Briggs, I don't think she's really asking us. She says, do you value my time? I think that's just a rhetorical question.
Absolutely.
Talking about that. Unless, Carol, are you trying to send me a message? What's going on here? What is that? I'm just playing. All right. So with that, I want to ask, so I'm on a mission. I'm personally coaching 10 agents just because I want to always kind of remain relevant in that arena. But my primary focus is growing the locker room and, of course, coaching the coaches here. But I have 2 main questions for my year. So if I'm standing in the elevator with Gary Keller and it's just he and I don't choke. And so my 2 questions, and I'll have more, but these are my 2 questions of the year are, and I'm going to ask them to you.
Uh-oh.
Number 1, and
Wait, did you ask Gary yet?
No, I haven't had the chance, but I'm just saying, anytime I'm in front of a influencer or somebody who's making life happen, I just want to have pre-templated questions that I make sure I ask them. And one of my goals this year is to be more intentional about asking really, really powerful questions. So here's my 2 questions to you. Number 1, what is the most powerful question anybody has asked you? Or what is not the, but what, jog your memory.
I'll tell you, I have it written. The most powerful question recently that someone's asked me was my coach.
I got to write this down. Hold on. All right, go ahead.
It up here, because we've been talking about my transit. So I replaced myself on my team earlier this year. I hired 2 admin and replaced myself so that I could follow my call, because I really feel like God was calling me into coaching and training full time.
Great.
So I was talking with my coach about that, and he said, am I expanding my call? Are you expanding your call to its fullest potential?
So are you expanding?
Are you expanding your call to its fullest potential?
And when you say call, it's purpose would be another word?
Call, vocation, what you're called to do. How are you called to impact the world?
Are you expanding your call to its fullest potential?
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Which was a great question for me because I need people around me to help me think bigger.
Right. Absolutely. We all do, by the way.
I've been thinking on that a lot.
Like that. Good job. You passed it. Now I got another one. It's very eerily similar of a question.
Okay.
What's the most powerful question you feel you've ever asked someone else?
Probably the reverse of that question.
Okay.
I mean, I'm a faith-based person, so I know everybody's not. But I would ask you, what is God calling you to do?
Yeah.
We think a lot of times about what we should do, what we could do, what we would do. What is God calling you to do? And my experience with that is that we all have gifts and talents and passions that when we use those, we feel so fulfilled and we're so successful at what we do. But sometimes we're not paying attention to what those are because we're around all these shoulds and coulds and woulds.
Yeah. So I added to your question, I wrote both of those down. What is God calling you to do? And then, are you doing it?
Are you doing it big enough?
Oh, are you doing it big enough? Noted. Thank you. Thank you. All right, good. I think that we have a question here from Carol Briggs. A question for the Rainmaker to the ops boss. If they're not showing up, how much do they value the ops boss? Oh, she was defining what she meant by that question. Yeah, sorry.
I think she's making a great point though, because so her question was, they're basically not valuing the ops boss if they're not showing up.
That's
so
the suggestion.
They don't value the person. And I think that's exactly, I think if you asked the Rainmakers, they would say that they do value their ops boss, but their actions are not in alignment. You know, the video and audio are not in alignment. And so the message that they're sending by accident is that they don't value the ops boss.
Yeah, I think that you're right. It's the message that's being sent through the actions. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, while we're on the question thing, what's a great question that the Rainmaker would ask to an ops boss to make sure that their vision, their world is big enough for the ops boss's world to live inside of it? Kind of a Gary Keller thing there. Like, what's like a probing type question if we're interviewing or something with each other to make sure I can accommodate that person's big world?
So you're talking about the interview side, or you're talking about you already have them on your
Either
team?
one. I don't know. Just a random question that came to my mind.
I think you really want to dig into goals. I think one of the mistakes we make, it's actually a two-way question, is if I'm an ops boss, I want to know what your goals and your vision are. That's super, super important to me. So I know if we're headed the same direction. And you should want to know what my goals and vision are. And are we in alignment? Are we going the same direction? And I think sometimes we forget the personal side. Yeah. So we're talking about business goals all the time, but what's important to your people? Yeah. Do we know, like, for example, previously when I was on my team, my transaction coordinator's dad had Alzheimer's, and he was losing his memory very quickly. What was important to her and her life, not work, didn't matter about work, but what was important was to spend as much time with him before he lost his memory. And we knew that, so we adjusted her role so that she could do as much as possible from outside the office so she could drive to where he lived and spend long weekends there. That's knowing your people and knowing your vision, and are we a match? Yeah, well said. I'm a Gary Keller, he doesn't know it, but I'm like one of his biggest fans, and I swear I'm going to be a mini Gary Keller, at least a fingernail of him. Think big, Jake. Yeah, right. I know. As I think the story goes of Gary Keller, I'm in no position to tell his story, but I remember one year on, I think, Mega Camper Family Reunion, he was explaining how once upon a time, his ops boss, if you will, or somebody asked, how big do you want Keller Williams to be? And I love what I think I heard his answer to be, and I've totally stolen it. How big do you want the locker room to be? I'm willing to allow it to get as big as it needs to get. So opportunity is always in abundance. Talent is always welcome, because I'm not going to be the lid to whatever this could be. And yet at the same time, our folks know here, I don't chase growth for growth's sakes either. I just chase being in business with the right people and let the cards fall where they may. Agree. So, 100%. Yeah. Cool. I don't know. That was not a question. That was just kind of a statement. To dial back to your question, though, and you were saying, like, what kind of questions do we ask when we're interviewing people? How do we find out if we have people that are in alignment with our vision? I think what we're doing sometimes, the mistake we make, is we're asking questions about how people think and what they want to do, but we're not drilling into what they have already done. So we want to know what their track record and their trajectory is. Yep. So anybody can talk a good game, and I always tell people to dig down 3 deep on their questions. Awesome. So if you want to know, for example, how they handled, a really almost insurmountable problem, ask them the question, tell me about a time when you blah, blah, blah. Let them tell you the answer. Ask 2 more times. Yes. Anybody can tell you what you want to hear once, and anybody can think of a second time, but to give a 3rd example in your actual life, if you can get 3 deep, then you know it's real. That's awesome. Yeah, totally agree with that one. Whew. And that, by the way, that right there applies to coaching. I mean, forget interviewing for a hot second here. Any coaching, anything they say at face value, they can get out of there or on and off in 30 minutes, and they just avoided true accountability. So for all coaches, go at least 3-4 layers deep, and we've talked about that a lot. So that's good.
Good stuff. What else would you say? What have we not talked about as far as knowing, because you teach and train on so many different areas, but specifically today we wanted to hit on what is the fundamental differences of an admin or an EA versus a true ops boss? What have we not said or hit on yet that you want to make sure you tell the coaches? Is there anything?
I think we've hit on everything. I think the most important one of all the ones we talked about is the empire protector versus the intrapreneur. And does the agent know which one they need and which one they want? Which one are they hiring for? There's no right or wrong. So it's not like if you're not an ops boss, you're a terrible assistant.
No, yeah.
Two different, completely different roles.
Yes. I love that. Thank you for unpacking that one.
As coaches, we can ask a lot of questions of our agents when they're at this point where they're hiring.
Yeah.
What are you looking for? What is the role? What are their job description going to be? What's the 20%?
Yeah.
Where are you going?
And if they say, I don't know, is there a great exercise that, because like, for example, I could say, all right, have a notepad and paper and take it an entire week. And every time you catch yourself doing something you despise or you can delegate, write it down. Like, is there an exercise that you would tell a mega to do to get
That's actually what I tell them to do. I tell them, I actually tell my ops bosses to do it as well. Anyone who is growing a business can do this. I always keep a list next to me of everything I hate to do and everything I'm not good at.
Interesting.
And that can help you form your job description for the next person. Either it can be a part-time leverage or full-time leverage or whatever.
And when you 3x'd your income and all, what you said earlier, I would think through a consistent, what I still call cash talk, but a weekly meeting where you hold the freaking meeting and you talk meaningfully with your ops boss of what's going on, some of that'll get pulled out in the early days. So you're never caught off guard when it's time to like hire an admin that the ops boss can oversee the admin. Is that right?
Yeah. 100%.
Good. Guys,
if people want to go to my website, also on the shop tab, I put in a download in there that's a free download that they can download. So it's a little chart that just has what an admin does and what an ops boss does, and they can kind of look two things. You can give it to your agents if they're hiring, so they can figure out which one do I need. And then if people already have assistants, the assistant and the rainmaker can sit down and look at that list together. It can help an admin transition into an ops boss and know what the expectations are, like what are the different levels, and have a conversation around it.
So where is that again? opsbosscoaching.com.
Correct. On the shop tab.
Shop tab, and they can get a free download that shows that main comparison of admin. Yeah. Guys, go there, get it. I will also go there and we'll upload that in the group as well, and that way they can have that. So
awesome.
Is there anything else you want to make sure we get out there? We got a little bit of time here and I don't see any big questions coming through. Anything else you want to tell the coaches?
No more questions. Wow. I would say the other areas I see where the agents could power up their admin is by investing in them. I go to tons of training. My team was always, when I was on the team, very supportive about everybody going to training. But what I see happening is when I'm in the training, there's hardly any admin in the training. Oh, my admin needed to stay back and answer the phones, or we had too many closings. But my thing is, if you go together, you grow together. Because otherwise the rainmaker comes back and you're not on the same page.
That is such a good point. I know, being very vulnerable, I can't tell you how many times I've felt that way. I'm like, damn it, I wish Holly, Brenna, Carissa were here with me because I can't package this up and go home, let alone meet with them in the lobby when it's still fresh on our minds and figure out what we're going to implement and do because of that information. That is such a good point. Love it.
One last thing, I think, in terms of your coaches working with agents, one thing they could also help them do, in addition to the exercise you said, is to work on an elevator script. So when they're hiring, they need to have an elevator script. And the mistake that I see people make is their elevator script is usually, oh, our team's growing and I need to hire an assistant.
Yep.
Do you know anybody looking for a job? So right there, you've set yourself up for failure because you're probably looking for someone who's not looking for a job, because unemployment rate is historically low right now. So there's not a lot of people out looking. And B, you've told them you're looking for an assistant. So now you've let the person you're talking to determine what is an assistant.
Yes.
So instead, you want to help them with an elevator script to describe what the role is and the qualities and the type of person that you're looking for.
Yeah.
And so what I would say, for example, back when I was looking for a transaction coordinator, I would say, oh, hey, we're looking we have a great opportunity for someone on my team. I'm going to describe somebody, and I want you to give me the names of people that this sounds like, and they're probably already happily working in another job. So I'm looking for somebody who's like not the PTA president, but they're like on all the PTA committees behind the scenes, and they're like super organized and run everything. Who do you know? And when you say that, they're like, oh, that sounds like Sally Smith.
Good point. Yes. So I've heard you say a lot of things. I've heard you talk about proper expectations. I've heard you talk about being, as a rainmaker, being a person of integrity who holds an appointment and does what they say they're going to do, right? I've heard you say around clarity, having an intention of what is that going to be that person's 20%. And I've really heard a lot about, kind of back to a bold law, really, people grow into the conversation you create around them. People will grow into the job post you put out there. Like it's setting that expectation so they can grow into that. That really is really screaming at me. I don't know if that came out right, but it makes sense in my head, and that's all that matters. So
I think I love that. You have to have, it's interesting. I've failed forward. Let me tell you, I've made a lot of bad hires. I'm not the perfect hirer, but I get better and better and better over time. I have an amazing team around me now. But over my time, I've made a lot of mistakes. The last two hires that we made to replace myself were really very much drawn to our ad because of our mission, vision, values, and beliefs.
Bingo. And how many agents inside of Keller Williams alone will say, yeah, I mean, all this stuff is great, but why I came here originally is because the value proposition or value statement.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. So
you need to know what that is for your team.
Exactly. So, all right. So let's say one last time, how can people get in touch with you?
So they can email me at Christy@opsbosscoaching.com.
Okay.
They can go to my website, opsbosscoaching.com. Follow me on Insta or Facebook friend me at Christy Grossman.
And we'll post links in the comment section here on our video. Christy, we're running out of time. I know you're like traveling. We had to squeeze this thing in. It's been crazy. And I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart on behalf of all the coaches here who got value out of this. And we have a lot of people watching, and we generally have a lot more who watch later. Thank you for your wisdom, your time, and everything you poured into us today.
Thank you. I'm so excited. Your coaches are amazing.
We do have some amazing coaches.
Yeah, no, I'm really excited about the work you guys are doing as well. I appreciate you having me.
So guys, yeah, it's our pleasure. And I know for one, anybody I come across, including our own team, we're going to get involved with you as far as operation, coaching, and training events and everything that you do offer. And I hope the other coaches will do the same. Let's do this again. And if I can ever pay it forward to you, you let us know on that. And I guess that's it, guys. We'll wrap it up. It looks like we have no more questions coming through, just a lot of compliments to you. And with that, have a great rest of your day, Christy.
Awesome. Go get bossy, guys.
Oh, get bossy. I love it. All right. Thank you.
Take
Seriously,
care.
thank you. You bet.
All right. Bye.
Bye-bye.